Thank you, Presiding Officer. I want to first recognise that there is a crowd of people outside the Parliament as I speak from Climate Mass Lobby. I know that I have a number of constituents who have made the journey from the Highlands and Islands in order to have their voice heard, and while I'm in here leading what I know is a very important debate, I do want to recognise what they are doing as well and apologise that I can't be with them today. Increasing intensity and frequency of wildfires is expected given the climate change and related extreme weather events that we're seeing. I'm clear that effort is needed to tackle climate change if we want this world to remain habitable for our own species and to mitigate the impact of wildfires, flooding and other events on our infrastructure, our communities and our natural environment. The less that we do to limit our own impact on climate change, the more it is going to cost us in lives, livelihoods and financially. These are expensive events to tackle and to recover from. Overall efforts to decarbonise transport, housing, energy is not separate to what I'm about to speak to, nor is restoring biodiversity. But I will focus for the rest of my speech on the reality that regardless of what I hope becomes an escalation in efforts worldwide to address our impact on the climate, we need to get better at preventing and reacting to wildfires. I've had many constituents write to me about this. Some have been heavily and personally impacted by wildfires, and others are simply devastated at what they've witnessed, particularly at Davamere this summer. Fires destroyed woodland, killed thousands of animals, and reportedly could be smelled as far away from the site as Orkney. One common theme in what folk have been calling for is action against the irresponsible tourism and camping that is so often linked to these events. Even when the exact cause is not known, like at Dava, remains of glass bottles, burnt tinfoil and campsites spotted amongst the devastation infuriate locals, especially victims of the blaze. The Cairngorms National Park Authority is leading the way, with Scotland's first fire management bylaw currently waiting for sign-off from ministers, restricting open fires and barbecues. I'm glad that these steps have been taken to protect our national park, but this action is something that I and many others in the Highlands would like to see replicated across the region. The Minister has heard from me on numerous occasions about the potential for a Scotland-wide ban on disposable barbecues, particularly over the summer months, and I hope that he can lay out when he sums up any limitations on the government in doing this and what his suggested way forward is. Because it's not enough to say that the issue is complex and leave it alone. We need to take action here. If we're unsure about devolved competence, we must test that, not just abdicate responsibility. The temporary fun of a disposable barbecue is not worth the danger to life, whether humans or animals, wild or livestock, the risk to the environment or the potential damage to rural businesses and homes. As the CAO of the CMPA, Grant Moyer, told me, the recreational fires that were agreed as appropriate 25 years ago are no longer so. The risk of wildfire has increased, the intensity of them when they do catch is greater, and the incidence of uncontrolled fires, thanks to folk taking risks, is simply too high. The CNPA is doing a lot that could be replicated elsewhere and leading the way. We don't need to reinvent any wheels. Under its Climate Adaptation Fund, it has so far provided grants of over £600,000, including for fire management equipment and training for estates and contractors. With SLE, it's working to replace equipment that was damaged in the Dava fires. This building of resilience and use of existing expertise and roles based on the ground where the wildfires will take place will undoubtedly support faster and more effective reaction when fires are spotted. Another frequent issue raised with me is that of helicopters and who should have easy access to one. Amongst the various suggestions made are that Nature Scot is not quick enough to react, as landowner insurance can cause issues. Given the risks in allowing fires to spread, looking at how the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service can more quickly and reliably get access to helicopter support in tackling blazes seems overdue. Scottish Land and Estates has suggested that the Fire Service should have its own helicopter capabilities. A constituent of mine suggested this should sit with Nature Scot, and another in discussion told me it really doesn't matter. Whoever can react should be given the resources to do so now. Management of fuel load, of course, comes up frequently too, and I hope that the Minister will respond to demands from gamekeepers on ensuring that muir burn licences are attainable to help with wildfire prevention. Mutual aid provided by land managers in a crisis is invaluable. These are people who know the land, know the access, know the risk factors involved. As the Government responds to cross-party calls today for more action on this, they will need to include those voices in plans and policies. I'm not one for calling for action plans, strategies or other government synonyms, but the lack of a Scottish wildfire plan does seem to be a screaming gap, given the massive coordination between authorities that is needed to manage both the risk and active incidents. The kit available to fire services to tackle wildfires must be considered in the context of working with other people on the ground. Both parties should be part of those needed discussions on what further SFRS equipment could be helpful and complementary to local efforts. I've already shared the suggestion of one constituent with Government that we need more data and strong evidence about the land use and vegetation that was on the ground at the time that a wildfire caught and spread. Knowing more about this reality rather than different sectors pointing fingers at each other would be invaluable. Now, even my generous 7 minutes today isn't long enough to cover all the points raised by stakeholders reacting to today's debate, but I do look forward to hearing everyone else's contributions. This is one of the largest volumes of correspondence that I've had about a member's business debate. Now, my excellent motion drafting skills might have played a part in that, but I suspect the bigger reason is the genuine and deep-rooted willingness from people on the ground, gamekeepers, NGOs, the public, organisations and lobby groups to play their part in wildlife prevention and tackling incidents. The Scottish Government has access to a wealth of knowledge, experience and volunteer willingness out there to grab hold of to tackle the increasing intensity and frequency of wildfires. And I hope that that is sincerely and enthusiastically made use of, and that the cross-party consensus I hope we're about to hear results in real concentrated action. Thank you.
Thank you.